So I want to welcome everybody here. We've got quite a few MEPs here, and we've got some ex-MEPs here. Welcome. And it's really good to see you, Malcolm, okay? And we also have stakeholders here, and we also have some young people here. Sadly, we have some young people who couldn't make it, but who should be here, but we're still going to give them the floor, and I will read the contribution that they would have made. So this lunchtime debate is dedicated to the IGF, and particularly to preparations for the next IGF, which will be in Geneva in 2 weeks' time, I believe. And in fact, many of the MEPs who are here in the room, Michal and Barbara, we were together on previous IGF missions. So we have been very active in IGF. Last year, we had an IGF youth. And I think this was the first time there had been a youth, a focused gathering of young people within the IGF itself. And it was really successful. It was so successful, the room was absolutely bursting with people. And I think that proves just how popular it was, not just for the young people, but for the policymakers, for the older people, for the stakeholders. And so I have continued to have a relationship with IGF youth over the past year. That's important for me because I'm on the Education and Culture Committee, and youth policy falls into my committee responsibilities. So advocating for youth, consulting with youth, listening to youth, trying to empower youth, giving youth a platform is really, really important for me. I just want to say thank you to Malcolm for encouraging me to get involved in EIF. And I'm not a very geeky person, and I think I had a thought, maybe many people have this thought about the internet or gadgets, which is that we have to understand how they work in order to engage in it. And it's not, I have to tell you, it's not true. Okay, I do all sorts of things with my different social media and gadgets, which mean they don't work or whatever. Okay, so I don't think you have to be a competent geek in order to get involved in internet governance. And I think the whole concept about internet governance is about it's about power, it's about transparency, it's about responsibility. And if you care about democracy, if you care about participation, then I think internet governance is really, really crucial. So I'm super glad that I got involved with EIF, and I'm really glad that I got involved with the IGF, and particularly with IGF Youth. Now, sadly, I won't be in Geneva, which is crazy because it's like really close. It's like we've been going to. An interesting thing about IGF is that it doesn't happen in capital cities, and it generally happens in the less developed world. But this year it's actually happening in Geneva, which is very accessible for many of us. But in fact, I'm going to be in Haiti for the ACP Joint Parliamentary Assembly. And in fact, I am, while I'm there, going to meet with some people from IGF Youth. So I'm still sort of doing IGF Youth, even though I won't be in Geneva. But I've given some thought to the priorities and the expectations for the 12th annual meeting, which is going to be held in Geneva. And so for me, the important thing, so if you're going, please take these things and, on my behalf and talk about them, discuss them. For me, it's thinking about governance in a collective way. So how can we collectively manage something that belongs to all of us? The democratic participation that I already talked about, the internet as a common good, and also how we can build a better future through internet governance. And that's why it's really important that young people are part of this process. I'm also really concerned about the digital gap. I represent a huge constituency in the northwest of England, which includes the Lake District, a very rural area of mountains and lakes and a huge coastline. And infrastructure generally is not good there. But also, these people don't have very fast, high-speed broadband. So we have huge problems for some of our communities because they just don't have the kind of access that you might, that we come to expect, really, in some of our capital cities and some of our big urban areas. So the digital gap is, we have to address that, because the digital revolution cannot take place if we leave people behind. And I know from working in those rural areas that, in fact, young people who are isolated geographically, in fact, need the internet even more, perhaps, than young people who are living in cities where there's lots of buses and where there's lots of facilities. So let's really think about the digital gap and how we can do something about that. But there are other gaps too. There's social, generational, and gaps. And for some people, culture is also a challenge. For some people, just using the internet perhaps is not something that they're so associated with. And I would say that perhaps, when we have very, very diverse communities, not all those communities are yet speaking English. Okay, they're not all speaking English, so for them, access to the internet can be a problem. Okay, I'm really concerned about media literacy and critical thinking. In the context of fake news, the phenomena of fake news, extremism, and online hate, this is a hot topic that we must coordinate our efforts on. And I know that this morning's breakfast meeting of the steering group, we talked about that, and we're definitely going to have a big event about those topics in the new year. I'm also really concerned about protecting the most vulnerable people online, so children and people with disabilities and migrants and refugees. I think it's very important that we put in an efficient answer to cyberbullying. We have to do something about this contemporary phenomena. And I'm also, as a feminist, I'm very concerned to look at the gender aspect as well. So it's not, it's not just a boy thing, is it? The internet is not just a boy thing, okay? It's for all of us. So these are the things that I'll certainly be thinking about that week, even though I can't be there. And perhaps you could think about them this lunchtime while we're having this dinner together and this conversation. Okay. And now I want to give the floor to Michal Boni, who is with whom I have a very good cooperation on internet governance issues. Michal, the floor is yours.